Okay, we are recording.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order of the Parks Committee. We'll start off with roll call. Alder Eck,
Here.
Alder Presley,
Here.
and Alder DeLee, myself, is here.
Oh,
Next, we'll do approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Oh, second. I guess I gotta remember for just you and I.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to E, regular business. Number 1, consideration with possible action on the communication from Alder Galvin to open all automated park shelter bathrooms by the end of the second week of April or as soon as after weather permits, and to close them for the season when the weather dictates. During that time, I would like all the shelters with automated locks to open at sunrise and all locks at sunset or when the parks are closed for the day.
I guess.
Alder Galvin, would you like to start?
Alder Galvin
Yep.
to start off the conversation.
So as James knows and Dan, one of my major complaints with the city park system has been bathrooms that taxpayers paid for. They have bathrooms for the taxpayers to use, and they can't use them unless they're attending a special event for which they have to pay money for. Or if you happen to go by when a parkie is working at one of those places. So it makes no sense to me for the taxpayers to spend how much money to build shelters that are only there for people that pay special fees. I am back into the attending the T-ball games, the soccer games and everything. I see little children running into the bushes to go to the bathroom. I see adults crossing their legs until they can't take it anymore. And there's a bathroom 50 to 100 yards away, but it's locked up. I've had the same thing when I take my grandchildren to Astor Park right by my house. We're there for about 20 minutes. One of them has to go to the bathroom, pack up, go home, because the bathroom's locked. So since then, I'm talking to the director, the city started buying locking mechanisms for 2 parks a year. And those locking mechanisms can be automatically set to open and close. Okay? I'm out walking my dog. It's after sunrise, I'm at a park that has one of those, I go to use the bathroom, it's locked. I'm not sure what is going on. There was another incident where a constituent complained to me about Joanne's Park. This kid had an accident, and the director told me that there was, I can't remember, how'd you put it, Dan? There was a
Miscommunication between
Miscommunication.
staff and how we were timing those
Right.
locks. Yes.
So, the parks have a legal time when they're open, a legal time when they're closed. If the water's running, and I found out from some other park department employees, and depending upon the weather, we have water running in the shelters as early as April. And I'm like, all right then, let's get the parks open. And for these children that are playing at games and stuff throughout the day, let's get it done. I mean, there was an article about bathroom times and that recently in the local newspaper. And I had a lot of people say, hey, yeah, that's great that you guys got this going. And I'm like, yeah, but let's get something that's consistent. Now, the director did tell me that like at Joanne's during the school year, there's a considerable amount of vandalism and the juice, it's not worth it to have them open during school. But certainly after school or once school's closed, yeah, I get that. And so I can understand exceptions to the rule. But I'd like a broad rule that covers all the parks, and eventually I'd like to see every shelter with a working bathroom operating under this. So our citizens and people visiting here, because you get around a lot when you're retired biking and all that kind of stuff, and you go to all these other parks, some of them are unlocked, some of them they pay for a portable porta potty, which I understand is another cost we have to consider. So I mean, there's things to consider there, but is it less expensive just to put out a porta potty? Okay, then let's do that. Is it less expensive to put on the automated locks and operate that way? All right, then let's do that. But I think the least we can do for the people that paid for the bathrooms is to have them open for them to use when they're there to use them. It's just another thing that enhances that experience at our park site. I think we got a great park system, we got great parks, people love going there. I love going to the different various parks in the area, you know, I'm going for walks and watching my kids play ball or my grandkids play ball and that kind of stuff. So that's all I'm asking for.
So I guess from here, I can tell you how we currently manage the locks, just so that you have an idea of a starting point here. And I would say that, you know, what we're currently doing isn't far off from what Alder Galvin is requesting, but it doesn't quite match exactly. So we start basically opening up all of our shelters towards late March and early April. It's all weather dependent. If it's cold, we start later, because once we open it up and run that water, if there's a chance of the pipes freezing, it's very difficult to go back and re-winterize and then start it up again. So we're always looking at the extended forecast, but if it's a warm spring, we'll start as early as we can. And I would say that by May 20th, we have everything open in the parks. That's how long it takes. Now, why I want to say that it's taking that long is because of all the things, the job duties that our plumber has. So we have one plumber on staff, and he is the city plumber doing, basically turning everything on in the parks. And he's also in charge of dealing with anything that breaks within the parks. Plus, he also works for other departments. So if Public Works has an issue where with a clogged toilet, he'll be called to go to the Public Works shop to do that, or police or fire. So it's one person doing all of this. So it's opening the shelters, it's opening the pools, and he doesn't do everything for the pools. We do have a pool specialist, but he assists with opening the pools. He opens the splash pads. He opens Bay Beach. As you know, Bay Beach is a seasonal facility that we have to have open too. He also opens everything at the sanctuary. Now we have the waterfalls there, which isn't necessarily a time-sensitive thing, but what is time-sensitive is we have a lot of outdoor animal enclosures. They all have water that runs to their enclosure, so he's in charge of turning on all of that water. So it's a lot of work for one person to do. That's why it takes us to about May 20 to turn everything on for the year. What we do is we prioritize all of that work. So we do start with the shelters and the high impact areas first. So we start with the shelters and the parks with heavy athletic field use. That's our first goal. But what happens is, you know, we usually start those things. We sometimes run into problems and he has to repair things as he's going. Or he'll have to take care of other emergencies in the city, such as police, fire, DPW, other things like that. So I would say that, you know, we can't guarantee that we have those shelters with the automatic locks open by the second week of April, but it's not that far off to have those bathrooms open, maybe a week at the most. But I'd hate to put that in a policy when we have all of these other duties that one person is responsible for. But as far as turning them on in early April, we're not that far off of what you're asking. And then in the winter or the fall, again, it's all weather dependent. I mean, we start, obviously, we do our things in reverse. So we take reverse priorities. We close the pools first, and then the splash pads, and then shelters last, and winterize the animals last. So what we turn on first is also the last thing we turn off. So, you know, again, it's into October when we're closing those facilities down, but by November, most of them are shut down. As far as when we have the automatic locks turned on and off, I'll tell you what we're currently doing, and, you know, we can discuss, you know, ways to change it if that's what your desire is, but I'll give you the reasoning behind it. So right now, we have anything with an automatic lock, we open at 7 a.m. That's what the timer is set for. We could go a little bit earlier if we wanted to. We don't see a lot of demand in the parks before 7 a.m., but that's what we currently have it set to. The automatic locks at night are kind of set differently. So we have 4 different times, and I'll kind of review with you why we have those times. So the times that we set those are some close at 7, some 7:30, some at 8, and some at 8:30. Now, obviously, I'm only talking about the automated locks because those have a timer. The reason that we have them at a staggered location like that is we still go to each of these shelters at those times, or approximately at those times, to clean, empty the trash, and make sure that nobody is in the restroom. So we go through shortly after it's locked, we go to that shelter, and we make sure it's locked, and we make sure nobody's in there. Our staff works till 10:30 at night. So again, we can't do this all at one point, because we don't have anyone after 10:30 to do this. The reason we stagger it and we clean like that is so that we don't run into the situation. Let's say they all lock at dusk, at 10 o'clock. You know, right now it's dark at 10, but let's say 9:30 or whatever random time we want to decide to go for. Say they all lock at 9:30 at night. We won't have time to hit all of those shelters, those 19 shelters from 9:30 to 10:30 to make sure they truly are locked and make sure that nobody's in them. So in those situations where somebody's hiding out in those restrooms after that timeline, if we don't check it, there's a potential somebody could be in there. Now, the advantage to the locks is we'll know if somebody's there. But sometimes it's too late. And let's say somebody's there for the wrong purpose and they're there to vandalize after hours. Well, by the time we know about it, the vandalism's done because they're sitting in there waiting. Or, you know, or as a potential. I'm not saying that it's gonna happen all the time, but there's a potential of that happening. And even if vandalism isn't a concern or not much of a concern, if there's somebody in there and we have to go after 10:30, now we're sending somebody in paid overtime to do it because we don't have anyone on staff to do it. Now, how often would that happen? I don't know. We haven't tried that out where we just pick a time and say all shelters lock at time. I'm just explaining to you why we have the staggered lock. And the reason behind it. Not to say we can't try it, maybe we could try it on a sample basis, try it for a few weeks, see how many problems we run into, and just pick a time, either on all the shelters or just a few select shelters, and see if we run into a problem. I'm just kind of explaining why we're doing it the way we are. The only exception to that, from a timing standpoint, is we have several exceptions. One is, like Alder Galvin mentioned, we don't open the bathrooms when school is in session at Fisk and at Joanne's. We have, in the past, we opened them and we just ran into a lot of problems with students before and after school. So we purposely don't open those bathrooms until after school is out for the day. And we have much fewer problems in those instances. The only other exceptions are when there's an event in the park, like if there's a park rental, that's past those times, we'll keep it open and we'll lock it after the fact. Another exception is Murphy Park. We know that there's an active pickleball group that goes there at 6 in the morning. They've requested that, you know, we have the bathrooms open when they're out at Murphy Park. So the timer at Murphy Park is actually set for 6 o'clock in the morning. Compared to 7 o'clock for the other parks. And then the Metro boat launch is the other one, because obviously there's a lot of fishermen that want to start early at the break of dawn. So when we first put the docks in, we open it up at 6:30 in the morning, that's about dusk. And then as the summer progresses and the days go longer, we actually open the Metro boat launch at 5 a.m. And we keep it open till 9 p.m. So those are the few exceptions that we have and the reason behind it. So right now, we open all of them at 7 with minus the few exceptions, and then we have a staggered closing. So in summary, that's the reasoning behind it. I think we're close to doing what Alder Galvin is recommending in this motion, but it's not quite exactly the same. So I guess whatever questions you have, I'd be happy to answer, or and I don't know what sort of direction you'd like us to go from here.
What parks all have the automated locks right now, and do we have parks that do not have them yet?
Yes, we do have parks that do not have them. Right now, there's 19 shelters that have them. And we focused on the ones that get the highest priority use. But there are a lot of shelters that still don't have them. I would say we have anywhere from 35 to 40 shelters, plus Bay Beach Amusement Park. Bay Beach doesn't have any automated locks at this point, for obviously because we only open those bathrooms when the park is open. We might put automated locks on, actually I think we are putting automated locks on the new bathrooms that we're going to be installing by the playground. But that would be the only exception.
Do we follow any sporting schedules with that, like with baseball, t-ball, any of that as well? Because I know that that's always a high priority. We're at the park 5 days a week.
When the park is reserved, we have the bathrooms open. So if somebody has a ball field that is rented, the bathrooms are open during that
Okay.
rental period.
Okay.
If they're just going there as a pickup, and they don't officially rent the facility, then we stick to the bathroom schedules. And then the other bathrooms, we do open also, but they don't have automated locks, so we have to actually go to each one and open and close one in between the automated locks, and as we have time with opening and closing those shelters.
Wait, so when I go to East Van Beaver Park tonight for my granddaughter's soccer game, the bathroom will be unlocked because it wasn't last week when we were there. And that's not an automated
If
system.
it's a scheduled game and a
It's a
reserve,
scheduled game.
if it's reserved,
It
it
was-
should be.
It was not open. A young girl and a mother both tried to go to the bathroom, came back, and they were very upset because the bathroom was locked.
Okay, well, I can look into that.
Sure.
What group was that?
It's, I don't know, 6-year-old soccer.
Kickers,
Um,
strikers.
Well,
I
it's
can't
east side,
remember.
east side, so it would be the.
East side is
strikers.
East Van Beaver, and I think the game started at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer for you on
Yeah.
that. I do know that if there's a reservation, the bathrooms are supposed to be open. In this particular instance, I can't explain
Right.
why. Maybe there was something broken with the bathroom, or maybe it was an oversight and it
Sure.
didn't get unlocked.
Absolutely.
So, but I'll look into that so
Yeah.
that it doesn't happen.
I
again.
appreciate it.
But also, if it's a pickup game and it wasn't an actual reservation, just because a formal group is playing there doesn't mean that we know that they're
I get
there.
that, but my grandson at the lower Colburn Park Fields, what is it, 3-2-3 and
Mhm.
something like that. My wife was there and the kids, they can't get in the bathroom, so they're urinating in the bushes.
Mhm.
And that's T-ball. I mean, you got teams all out there and lined up, and so that should have been, again, a reserved situation.
And we can check into it, but another example that just happened with another soccer group is the organizer of the soccer group didn't actually have those dates in his permit that he submitted. So then we followed up with him and confirmed what dates they were actually
Sure.
at the park.
And I get it, so, yeah,
So
stuff can happen.
we'll look into it.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And this is the thing that'll save us, once we get all the shelters on an automated system.
Yep. And making sure that that schedule is correct.
Mhm.
Right, because I would ask that, and I understand the staggering. I mean, like, previous life, I used to open and close the bathrooms for the city.
Mhm.
That was part of the cadet program at the PD.
Yeah.
So, you know, we didn't do that. But, and I understand you want to stagger it because you don't want anyone staying until midnight, you know, but that may be something to look at in the future,
Mhm.
to add on a part-time staff or something like that. But, because that was going to be my point, if all these soccer games and all this stuff is going on. But, I mean, the parks are closed by 10, and I understand you're going to do an experiment and see how that works out. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, and I understand about the weather.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know, my wording isn't exactly the best, but I guess the emphasis I want to get across is that as soon as a shelter is open for business, the automated system is kicked in.
Yep.
You know, you can say the park's not used that much at 7, but who really from the park system is out there counting heads,
Yeah.
you know, as people go walking their dogs and stuff like that. So I would like to see when the parks are legally open, especially as it's automated, no one has to be there pushing a button or throwing a lever.
Yeah, and I don't have any problems, I mean, I don't have any problems with the time that we open the shelters. The closing of them is a little more problematic,
Right.
just making sure people aren't in them after hours or after the doors
Well,
are
and
locked.
and that can be a safety concern, I certainly understand that, so, you know, because I'm gonna be asking the mayor to either budget or, again, bond, because didn't we get 13 through bonding?
Yeah, I think it's like 14, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask him again to do that this coming year, because my thing is, the parks are there for everyone to use.
Yeah.
The more they're usable, the more people are gonna use them, and the sooner we can get them open, I understand about closing lanes, so, you know, if you wanna play around with that and see if it turns into be a problem, if it turns out not to be a problem, then
Yeah.
that's all good too, so.
What, if you're,
Alderette?
okay, thank you. Chair? So I was trying to write, so is 7 o'clock the earliest closing time that you do?
7 o'clock is the earliest one we do,
And then the last one's at 8:30?
8:30.
So, and they're, about how long does it take them to do all the closing?
Well, there's 19 shelters with them,
Okay.
so again, we kind of stagger it and,
Well, they have to do the other ones though too, right?
yeah,
So they're going and closing the ones that are all the non-locking ones. as well,
correct.
or
And
the
that's
auto.
different each day depending on which parks are being reserved, because we don't open every bathroom in every park. We only do it if there's reservations at the park for the other location, other than the 19. The 19 with automatic locks, we open every day.
Okay, but during the
Um,
summer, you open those, most of, are they not open?
I'm talking the other shelters without the locks.
Right, without the locks, but, so you're saying they're not open during the day?
They are if the park is being rented for something.
Well, what about with the parky programs? Or are
Those
those
are
all?
parky, we open those during the parky program. So what I'm saying is not every bathroom is open every single day.
Okay, kind of feel like it should be.
And that's why we're going to the automatic locks, because,
Yeah.
you know, we've had this discussion about, you know, just being able to go to each shelter to lock and unlock every day, knowing you have 40-plus shelters, including Bay Beach. How can, you know, one crew do that? Unless you want to add another crew where you're kind of, you know, but that's a budgetary decision that would have to be made to add additional staff just to open and close the shelters.
Are the parkies opening? Or do you have your other staff?
No, the automated locks just, they open and close. so
Well, I mean, the
parkies
ones
wouldn't
that-
do
Ones
it.
that don't have
The ones that
automatic
don't
locks
have the
usually.
automated locks, are there
I
any?
don't know that offhand.
I think it depends on the situation. Typically, the parkies don't unlock them, but they have the ability to, I think.
Well,
So,
it's a thought.
Mhm.
You know, if they're not automated locks and the parky opens them, at least it's
If-
open during. the
If there's a parking program, the bathrooms are available to the public
Yeah.
for every park that has a parking program.
Well, would an option be to start closing them at 7:30? I mean, at least it's a little bit later. I know it's not quite till the park's closed. But I just don't know
We
if
can
that's
try
enough
that.
time. I'm wondering if that's enough time for you. If you did 7:30, 8, 8:30, and 9. Is that enough time?
We can experiment with different things and see what works the best.
Those are my thoughts.
Just to
And then I
push a
can
little
report
later, I
back to
agree.
the
Yeah.
committee, I can report back to the committee after the summer to see kind of what worked well and what didn't, and then put together a game plan from there.
I know, well, obviously, well, James was referring to the West Side Kickers, because my daughter's on the board for that. So she's like, can you call James? Now she knows you by first name and see about the, you know, because, and obviously it was a miscommunication, but that could be for others, like what Alder Galvin's talking about, where they're just not giving all the dates. And then, you know, it just, everybody has to be on the same page, because I know it's hard. I was a soccer mom, and you definitely needed those bathrooms when you're there with your kids.
Yeah, and ultimately, we would like to have every bathroom with automated locks. And then, you know, then it's just a matter of what times you pick for opening and closing. So,
Okay, thank you.
Nothing else?
Any other thoughts? Well, then, should I make a motion? Trying to
Would we
think of how
refer to staff? Refer to staff, or that would probably be the best? Or, no, I would refer to staff. Because we're looking at changing the hours of the locks, and I think another thing is looking at bonding for the rest of the money for,
Well, in here,
more
he
automated locks.
Yeah.
he does have
that's
in your
something-
That'll be
letter,
something different.
Let's just cover the opening and closings.
Yeah,
because it says all shelters with automated locks, so that's all we're looking at right now.
Right.
To maybe, I guess, would it make sense to make it as a motion to, I'm just looking at the wording here, how to do this.
I would say possibly the motion should be to refer to staff to consider options to do this and report back to the committee after summer. I guess I don't know when you'd want us to report back with what we
Yeah,
found out.
I mean, obviously, you can't hire people now, and you can't budget money to do things, so report back to staff, but we could actually get it so that it'd start opening up at sunrise or 6 o'clock in the morning, and trying to see how it works with closing with the later times.
You think 6 o'clock is, I mean, for the pickleball and the,
Well, not just the pickle, but there's, you would, I think there's like 1 million unregistered dogs in the city, because when I'm at the park, that's all I see is people walking dogs, you know, all over the place, especially early in the morning before they go to work, and, you know, and it gets warm out and stuff like that. But you also see a lot of people out exercising, you know, jogging and things like that in the park, going for walks. So, you know, the sooner you can get them open, the better. You know, if it's light out, I'd say, you know,
I
have
think
them usable.
that's the key for me is light out.
Mhm.
I'd hate to have them open and it's not light out. I
Right.
don't know, just for some
Right,
reason.
I mean, right
think
now,
that's-
sunrise is like 5:30 something in the morning. You know, but if you want to set it at 6, I'm okay with that. You know, 6, because even in the fall, you know, people are up and about, just because it's dark out, they're not out walking their dog. You know, they're gonna be out when it's dark out come fall, so I don't have a problem with it being open. You got cross-country meets and that kind of stuff at Coburn, and you get a lot of people at those things. I mean, but there's so much more going on in our park, so I think if you can get them open for the season, I understand the closing concerns, but if the water's running and people are in the park, they should be able to use the shelter.
I think the motion could be then to direct staff to, I'll figure out how to word it, but in essence, to open the shelters with automated locks, the shelter bathrooms with automated locks at 6 a.m.
Right.
and to continue with a staggered closing. or-
And if you want to make it later, with the park department reporting back on that
Okay.
after the season's over to see how it worked out, and then we can adjust the time.
Sure.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay. We'll figure out how to word that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can
The
you
motion
move the original
carries.
motion?
Me.
Okay. Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, everything that we vote on tonight will go to the common council on June 24th.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thanks. Number 2, consideration with possible action on the approval of the installation of boulder seating areas and other amenities adjacent to the Doty Street trail connection from South Washington Street to the Fox River Trail by Downtown Green Bay, Inc.
So we were approached by Downtown Green Bay Inc., and I've attached graphics of what they're proposing to do. But in essence, what they want to do is install boulder seats adjacent to the trail connection from Doty Street leading to the Fox River Trail. And then what they would do is they would pave concrete around the boulder seats so that it's compliant and it's not a mess with wood chips and gravel and stuff like that. They're proposing to fund this entirely in full 100%. We have reviewed this plan. Our park planner and city engineer and forester have all reviewed this plan and are in agreement that this is a good use of what they're proposing to do. And we would recommend approval contingent upon the law department review and approval of all necessary contracts allowing the work to proceed.
Holderack?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify, because it says boulder seating areas, is that, what does that mean, just cement or concrete or?
So what that would be is just limestone boulders that are just cut from a quarry. It's similar to what we have at Bay Beach Amusement Park, where we just set the boulders kind of in a row, and then people can choose to sit on the boulders.
Oh, okay.
And then, so they'll be raised about 18 inches above ground to act as a little seat wall kind of. And then there'll just be concrete around it so people can walk directly up to this, a small boulder seat that's about that high.
Okay, so an actual boulder,
Yep.
all right. that's-
And then they'll do a little bit of extra paving right adjacent to the road to accommodate the porta potties. So instead of the porta potties sitting in grass or in the adjacent parking lot, they would sit on this concrete slab.
Nice. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There's no director's report.
There is no director's report because this was a last minute
Throw together.
throw together park committee meeting, so. We'll have one for the next meeting.
Informational, we have next meeting July 9th, and
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
All right. Well, that's nice that downtown Green Bay wants to do that. I mean, do we ever say no to people wanting to give us things? Why?
Probably bad policy.